My male god proposed, 1 million, and pretend to be my couple with me. In my previous life, I firmly refused because I knew that my male god had someone else in his heart. In this life, I agreed without even thinking. After all, I'm going to run away with the money in a year. I am Sarah, the daughter of the Lincoln family, but I'm a fake one. In my previous life, I spent money recklessly, yet I still claimed that I regarded money as nothing. When the real daughter, Mia, arrived, I had no savings at all. After being framed by her several times, I was kicked out of the Lincoln family. She looked at me in a sorry state and wore a proud expression. Sarah, you've stolen my identity for so many years, and now it's your turn to suffer. The real daughter secretly used her connections to cut off all the channels for me to find a job. I couldn't find a job and couldn't afford to rent a house. In order to survive, I could only work as a cheap part-time cleaner. As a result, before I could get my salary, I was crushed to death by a heavy object. In this life, I decided not to fight with the real daughter anymore. I'm just going to slack off. I have only one goal now. Before Mia arrives, save a large sum of money. If nothing unexpected happens, Mia will make a stunning appearance at my birthday party, and I'll leave voluntarily at that time. It is said that if I save 1.6 million, the annual interest will be 60,000. That's 5,000 per month. So I can definitely survive while lying flat in the future. I don't have the protagonist's halo. I can't, like the female protagonist in a novel, make a comeback after being kicked out of the house and then take revenge on the real daughter or something. I just want to save enough money, and then find a place where there are no acquaintances and live my life freely. However, I couldn't help but sigh as I looked at my balance. Before, for the convenience of spending money, I directly asked for the secondary card of my current father. Now, it's a problem. I can't directly withdraw the money from this secondary card, and my family knows how much I spend. I'm so stupid. There is less than a year left before my identity is exposed. In this year, I'm going to save money like crazy. Fortunately, for the sake of the family's face, I haven't fallen behind in my studies at all. I rummaged through my dormitory for a long time and found my CT6 certificate and the second-level Mandarin certificate. I took a photo and sent it to Mandy, that is, my current father. Dad, I want a reward. It took me so much effort to get these certificates. My dear daughter, just use the secondary card to buy whatever you want, as long as you're happy. Dad, using the card means spending your money. I want a reward. As soon as I finished speaking, the prompt sound of Alipay came, indicating that $100,000 had been credited to my account. Sure enough, no matter when it is, a coquettish woman is the luckiest. I held my chin and fell into deep thought. Should I find a job? Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Sarah, you're so lucky. $100,000 just arrived in your account. Will you directly inherit one of your family's branch companies after graduation? I turned my head and saw that it was Linda. In my previous life, she was very close to me. Now that I think about it, she was more flattering me. After I was kicked out of the house, I wanted her to take me in temporarily, but she blocked me directly. However, now she's flattering the wrong person, because I don't have a company to inherit at all. I smiled self-deprecatingly and didn't say anything, but Linda leaned closer and put her arm around mine, saying, Sarah, you have to arrange a position for me in the company. My family's company doesn't hire idle people. After saying that, I pulled my arm away and was about to go to bed, leaving Linda with an unpleasant expression. I lay on the bed, thinking about how to make money. Should I take the IELTS exam, or should I take the postgraduate entrance examination? No, even if I pass, I still need to find a job. Damn it, at that time, Mia will use some tricks, and no company will want me again, and the Lincoln family indeed has that kind of power. Thinking carefully about my previous life, the biggest fortune I missed was the $1 million that my male god offered me to pretend to be his girlfriend. This time, I can't miss it again. George is my male god, and he looks exactly in line with my aesthetic. The first time I met him was at a party in the Duncan family. I took a fancy to him at that time. He is a gentle and elegant gentleman, but he has a girlfriend, named Mia. She is exactly the real daughter of the Lincoln family. I don't know why we look somewhat similar, but our temperaments are completely different. Compared with Mia, I'm like a vicious female supporting character, arrogant and a bit conceited. I knew that George had someone he liked, so I didn't want to make a fool of myself. After all, in my previous life, I thought, Sarah can find any man I want. I came to the Duncan family's dinner party wearing a gorgeous dress, the place was resplendent and magnificent, and the crystal chandelier emitted a dazzling light. In my previous life, I missed my $1 million here. In this life, I'm going to take back everything I missed. When Mrs. Duncan saw me, she dragged George and took the initiative to show her kindness to me. Sarah, you're here, you're getting more and more beautiful, right, George? After Mrs. Duncan gave me a gentle smile, she gave George a cold look, but George remained unmoved and didn't want to pay attention to me at all. I lowered my head and replied shyly like a lady from a prominent family, Mrs. Duncan is getting younger and younger, George, and brother George is getting more and more handsome. I lowered my head not because I was shy, but because when I saw George, I thought of my $1 million. I'm afraid that I can't help laughing out loud. I pretended to casually walk to the garden to relax. It seemed casual, but in fact, it was all carefully designed, all for that $1 million. The garden had a pleasant scenery, but I had no mood to appreciate it. I just hoped to see George soon. While thinking about it, a quarrel came from ahead. It was Mrs. Duncan and George. Mrs. Duncan's loud scolding startled me. Any woman who can't make it to the top is brought into the house. Mia, I will never agree to her entering my house in my life. I only recognize Sarah as my daughter-in-law. If you're so infatuated with a slut, you'll never inherit the Duncan family in your life. After saying these words in a row, George didn't dare to say a word. It turned out that George is actually a mama's boy. His girlfriend was slandered, and he didn't even dare to say a word. But what Mrs. Duncan didn't know was that Mia is the real daughter of the Lincoln family. Mia is the female protagonist of a quick-paced novel, and I'm not. I just want to make money. George became gloomy because of Mrs. Duncan's words. He lowered his head and walked aimlessly in the garden with slow steps. His eyes looked around from time to time, as if he was looking for something. I knew that he was looking for me. The moonlight shone on his side face, making his superior jawline even more prominent. Unfortunately, it's not as good-looking as my money. My chance has come. I silently turned around and sat on the nearby swing, waiting for George to take the initiative to talk to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw George walking towards me. I couldn't help but feel delighted inside. Is my $1 million coming soon? Sure enough, George called out to me. He hesitated for a moment and said, Sarah, how about $1 million to pretend to be my girlfriend? There was a hint of uneasiness in his words, but I held back my laughter and pretended to be calm and said, what's the duration? Half a year. This is simply too wonderful. Endure the hardship for half a year and get $1 million. George seemed to see the joy in my eyes and looked at me with a slightly displeased expression. It was as if he was saying, it's just a pretense. There's no way I'll take a fancy to you. I shrugged my shoulders and ignored his expression. After all, I'm just interested in this $1 million. In my previous life, George was my male god, but in this life, I only love myself. I was overjoyed, but I always felt that $1 million was too cheap for George. After all, $1 million is nothing to George. My mind turned, and I said, by the way, give me a small apartment as well. That newly developed residential area of yours. I promise I'll scram in half a year. How about it? George was a bit surprised, but he still readily agreed. It's a deal. After all, half a year is enough for him to have the ability to inherit the family business, and I will have a house and money. It's really a win-win agreement, George proposed. Pretend to be a couple. In order to win his mother's support and thus inherit part of the family business, in my previous life, my self-esteem didn't allow me to get involved in other people's relationships, and I didn't care about $1 million. In this life, not only did I agree to George, but I also asked for a small apartment. By the way, I have a place to live, and I have $1 million. The money came so smoothly. I was a bit complacent, but then I heard a teasing voice from behind. Does the eldest lady of the Lincoln family seem to be short of money? The person who said this looked a bit familiar, but I couldn't remember his name for a moment. However, so what if he heard my conversation with George? Yes, is there any problem? I turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, I remembered that this was no ordinary person. He is Chandler. He is currently the least favored child in the James family. But in just 1 year, the internet company he took over became one of the top ones. His business acumen made the family look at him with new eyes. As for whether he took over the James family later, I don't know, because I died soon. But I don't think we will have any intersection, so I don't care. George is very efficient. The next day, He sent the agreement to me, Miss Moo. This is the agreement for pretending to be a couple. Do you think there's anything to add? Several floor plans of the apartment have been sent to your phone. Which one do you want? The general meaning of this agreement is that I will help George deal with his mother, and he will give me $1 million and a house. I thought there was no problem and quickly signed it. This $1 million can't slip away. After signing the agreement, I carefully looked at the floor plans sent by George. In the past, I naturally wouldn't have taken a fancy to such an apartment, but now this is going to be my future home. So I can't be careless. This one. I pointed to the one-bedroom apartment in the picture and said, "Don't you want that two-bedroom apartment below? I like the lighting of this one." "Are you kidding me? What do I need that two-bedroom apartment for? It's tiring enough for me to live alone." George and I agreed that he would give me $1 million in 3 months. The house has been decided, and it will be delivered with fine decoration in 1 or 2 months. Although the floor is not particularly good, at least it will be a home for me in the future. I don't have to live in a shabby staff dormitory like in my previous life. "You seem to be very happy to pretend to be my girlfriend," George suddenly asked. His expression was as if he was saying, "I've got you, don't love me too much." I looked at George in surprise. Where did this narcissistic man come from? "I'm happy because of the money." "Okay, you're thinking too much. See you next time, goodbye." I picked up my bag and got up to leave. By the way, I suddenly remembered that I still have a lot of famous brand bags. Pawning some of them occasionally should also bring in a lot of money, right? It has been a month since I signed the agreement with George, but he hasn't contacted me. I'm also enjoying it. It would be best if I can get it for free, of course. I haven't been idle during this time. I found a job. The company's general manager is a friend of my father. The original intention of my looking for a job was to create value so that I could always have something to live on in the future. Now, the whole company knows that I'm the eldest lady of the Lincoln family. The department head doesn't dare to assign me too much work, and my colleagues are also polite to me. I go to the company at 9 o'clock every day, and I'm almost idle until I get off work. I really want to show myself. But things didn't go as I expected. Me, manager. "Is there anything I can help with, manager? Just say something nice for me in front of the boss." Me, "I didn't do anything this month, and I was especially taken care of. I got $4,000. I don't know if they will be angry when they find out that I'm a fake daughter." However, Sarah went to the company for an internship, really wanting to exercise myself, not to experience life as everyone said. Alas, I really have difficulties that I can't tell. In the huge office area, everyone was rushing to create value for the company. Only I was bored and was watching a TV drama on the computer. Putting on my headphones, I was isolated from the intense competition among my colleagues. Just as I was completely fascinated by DD, a colleague at the next table poked me. I looked at her in confusion. As I took off my headphones, I heard the manager losing his temper. Whose phone isn't on silent? I've said it so many times. However, the ringing that sounded in the office area seemed somewhat familiar. Damn it, it was my phone. Looking at the manager's somewhat angry expression, I apologized in a low voice. "Sorry, it's my phone ringing." When the manager saw that it was me, his attitude immediately did a 180-degree turn. "Sarah, go answer the phone quickly. Don't keep the other person waiting anxiously." I couldn't help but feel embarrassed when I saw the manager's flattering expression. Actually, it would be fine if he treated me like an ordinary employee, because I would soon become an ordinary person. I picked up my phone and went to the lounge. George was calling me, and it definitely couldn't be anything good. "Hello, Sarah, why did it take you so long to answer the phone? Are you busy?" Sarah, who was George trying to disgust. Wait a minute, it suddenly dawned on me. This George was definitely putting on a show for Mrs. Duncan. I almost blurted out, "Are you out of your mind?" That was a close call. I cleared my throat softly and said in a gentle voice, "George, I was just working. What do you want from me? Trying to disgust me? Let's hurt each other then." George was probably disgusted by me, and he paused for a long time before speaking. "Sarah, there's a banquet held by the James family tonight. Let's go together." "Okay then, I'll go back to work now. Goodbye, George." After saying that, I hung up the phone. If we talked any longer, I was afraid I would get goosebumps. However, a banquet of the James family, if I remembered correctly. This was a banquet held to announce the identity of the heir of the James family. For the people of the James family, this was probably like a feast at a trap. Of course, for me, this was just a task and a chance to watch the drama. When I got back to my seat, I received a text message from George. Good job. It seems that my mom believes it. I'm glad you're satisfied, young master. I'm still waiting for that $1 million. I took George's arm and entered the auditorium. Mrs. Duncan was very satisfied when she saw us. As long as Mrs. Duncan is satisfied, my money won't run away. Entering the auditorium, I have to say that the James family is really rich and willful. The huge venue was extremely luxurious. Local celebrities had also gathered here. I wasn't interested in these business pleasantries, so I found a place to sit down alone. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and Leo, the founder of the Siang group, stood under the spotlight and started to speak. I could just take the opportunity to eat while the lights were dim. I would have fewer and fewer chances to eat such delicious food, so I had to cherish it. Suddenly, someone sat down in the seat next to me. I looked up and saw that it was Chandler. He was looking at Leo, who was speaking. That was his father. I moved a little to the left, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chandler's good-looking side face. His jawline was smoother than my life plan, however. There was somewhat an expectant look in his eyes. Unfortunately, he was expecting the wrong thing. Leo didn't like him and definitely wouldn't give him the right of inheritance. Sure enough, the next moment, Leo said, the James family will naturally be inherited by the excellent eldest son. Others shouldn't have any unrealistic ideas. I turned to look at Chandler, and his eyes immediately dimmed. The last sentence seemed more like a warning to Chandler. Chandler must be very sad. His father, Leo, achieved his current success relying on Chandler's mother, but it couldn't compare to the child born to Leo's former beloved wife. After Chandler's mother passed away, his father remarried his former beloved wife at lightning speed, and Chandler had no mother and also didn't receive his father's love. What, do you also think I'm pitiful? Chandler suddenly said self-deprecatingly. I shook my head. I don't think you're pitiful. Maybe, after all, you don't understand my feelings. When I heard Chandler say that, I became interested. How don't I understand? I also fell from heaven to hell before. Fell from heaven to hell, yes, and I'm sure I'll fall to the bottom again in the future. I paused, smiled at Chandler, and then continued, but there's no way around it. People live in hell because they can go to heaven after they die. However, in my previous life, I didn't seem to go to heaven even after I died. Probably God thought I must have a lot of unwillingness, so it let me have another chance. In my previous life, after I couldn't defeat Mia, I was kicked out of the house. I had no fixed place to live. I almost got killed when I worked in a factory screwing bolts. I managed to escape and did odd jobs, but before I could get some money to buy myself something to eat, I was crushed to death, and I myself had never been in love and hadn't realized my dreams. I comforted Chandler and said, don't worry, you will succeed, but he looked uncertain. I hope so. It's not just hoping, it's definitely going to happen. If we weren't unfamiliar with each other, I would follow Chandler in this life. However, it seems it's not impossible. Chandler, what do you think of me following you in the future? This way, let's see what the Lincoln family dares to do to me. Chandler looked at me, shook his head, and said seriously, our company doesn't want idle people. What? As expected. It's still not possible. Damn Chandler, I shouldn't have comforted you in the first place. You deserve not to be favored. I snorted coldly and moved a little more to the left. After the banquet ended, George and I left the venue together. The good news, my house will be delivered tomorrow. I'll have my future residence soon. The bad news, George is going to take me to visit his parents next week. Is this progress too fast? How about we delay it? If everything goes well next week, I'll transfer the money to you after it's over. Great, but you have to reimburse the gifts. I was overjoyed. Looking at it this way, the bad news immediately turned into good news. When I got home, I was so happy that I couldn't fall asleep. Just thinking that I could get the house tomorrow and the money next week made me too excited to sleep. How should I spend the $1 million? I should first spend some money to buy some furniture for the apartment, and then, my eyes fell on the row of famous brand bags in the cloakroom. If I take a few to the apartment every few days, I wonder if it will be noticed. If I'm short of money in the future, I can still sell them. Why didn't I think of this method in my previous life? At that time, I was so focused on competing with Mia that I didn't think of it. As a result, I lost completely. Since I was going to get the house after work in the afternoon, I felt that time passed very slowly even when I was slacking off today. I was also a bit absent-minded when watching the TV drama. When the department head saw this, he walked up to me concernedly and asked, Sarah, I see you keep looking at your watch. Do you have something urgent? If you do, you can go back first. In the past, I would have declined repeatedly, just to keep the same pace as others, but this time, I directly thanked him and picked up my bag and left. I was really excited and drove directly to the community. Looking at my empty apartment, I felt extremely satisfied. The apartment was delivered with fine decoration, and I just needed to buy some furniture. I took the property ownership certificate of the apartment and returned to the villa that my parents bought for me. No matter how good this villa was, it wasn't mine. This apartment made me feel more at ease. In the following days, as soon as I got off work, I would go to the mall. While adding furniture and decorations to my little home, I also had to look for gifts for the visit to the Duncan family. By the way, I did my homework when I was slacking off and compared the furniture after work. In the past, I would definitely only buy the expensive ones instead of the right ones. Now I have to compare the cost-performance one by one. I couldn't use the secondary card, or my family would definitely notice something was wrong. A week later, my little home was almost fully furnished. I chose a jade bracelet for George's mother and a set of tea sets for George's father. Of course, George reimbursed me for them. Next, it was time for me to show my performance. I specifically asked George to choose a suit that matched the color of my clothes, so that we would look more compatible. I entered the Duncan family's house with George. When I saw the people inside, my legs went a little weak. This George said it was just meeting the parents, but he didn't tell me that I would meet all the relatives. It seemed that all the aunts and uncles were here. Sarah is here, Mrs. Duncan smiled widely when she saw me. Auntie, you're getting younger and younger. Uncle is also looking more and more energetic. With just my words, I made Mrs. Duncan laugh so much that she couldn't close her mouth. I also took the initiative to cook in the kitchen, and others kept praising me for being virtuous. The more they praised me, the happier I was. Anyway, I wasn't going to marry into the Duncan family. Anyway, I was just putting on a show. Sarah, your cooking skills are really good. Of course, I've been practicing every day recently for my future independence. I pretended to be shy and said, Auntie, don't praise me anymore. I'll come often and cook for you in the future. I directly gave Mrs. Duncan a bowl of sweet words. I almost believed the big promises I made myself, with my eloquent mouth. I made George's relatives very happy. After dinner, Mrs. Duncan insisted on keeping me, but I said I had to go to work tomorrow. That's how I managed to leave. Sigh, I'm just too likable and there's nothing I can do about it. George was very satisfied with my performance. However, he was a bit narcissistic. Sarah, don't really want to marry into my family. I only have Mia in my heart. I couldn't help but give George a roll of my eyes. Are you satisfied? If you are, young master, give me the money. Here you are, I'll transfer it to you right away. George took out his phone and directly transferred the money to me. He couldn't help but mutter, you, Miss Moo, always talk about money all day long. Ding, I received a text message on my phone saying that the money had been credited to my account. I could finally heave a sigh of relief. George drove me home. It wasn't for the sake of putting on a show. It was just because there was really no way to get a taxi in this villa area. Sitting in the back seat, I was thinking about how to manage the $1 million to make more money. Suddenly, George's phone rang. I glanced at it and saw that it was Mia. Hello, what's wrong with you? George hung up the phone and turned to look at me apologetically. I'm sorry, it's okay. I can just take a taxi nearby. There are still taxis available in this commercial area. I naturally wouldn't deliberately ruin other people's relationships for no reason, although Mia wasn't nice. I didn't plan to fight with her in this life. Only by staying alive could I have a chance to turn the tables. I got out of the car somewhat awkwardly. I won't bother with George considering that I got the money. I opened the taxi hailing app and waited for the driver to arrive. It was a bit cold, and I felt a little chilly standing alone at the intersection. Finally, I saw a car stop in front of me. I checked the license plate number before getting in the car with peace of mind. However, after getting in the car, I saw that the driver's side face looked somewhat familiar. Chandler, why are you here? Chandler obviously didn't expect it to be such a coincidence and said a bit awkwardly, I'm making some extra money. Goodness me, I was wondering who would drive such a good car to make extra money. It turned out to be Chandler. Wait a minute, making extra money? Are you short of money now? There are some difficulties with the company's funds. I could tell that Chandler was somewhat helpless. Although he was the young master of the James family, he wasn't favored. It seemed that his family didn't support his entrepreneurship at all. After all, his father just hoped that he could behave himself and help his elder brother. However, how could Chandler possibly help his half-brother? But this seemed to give me an opportunity. I can lend you some money, you lend me money. I can become a shareholder, right? I'll invest in you, just like that. A large part of the money that I hadn't even warmed up yet was gone. I invested $800,000 in Chandler's internet company. It was as if I had invested my entire later life. However, anyone could not be optimistic about Chandler, but I was extremely certain that he would succeed. I really have to thank Mia for that phone call, which gave me the opportunity to learn about Chandler's predicament and become a shareholder of Chandler's company. The only thing I'm grateful to Mia for is that one matter, because this Mia has caused me trouble again. Mrs. Duncan finally believed that I was passionately in love with George, but it was all messed up by this Mia. Sarah, please help. After all, it's written in the agreement. Looking at George's message, I really felt like spitting blood. So you still know what's written in the agreement. I acted so well, but you two were like dry wood and kindling, getting all passionate. This Mia deliberately showed her weak point, as if she was afraid that Mrs. Duncan wouldn't notice. This girl must have done it on purpose. Please, I'll add more money if necessary. Add more money. After seeing this, I quickly replied, it's a deal. For the sake of money, I'll clean up this mess. I don't want to either, but he's offering too much. I went alone to the coffee shop where Mia worked and waited for her. I remembered that she came to work when she didn't have many classes. Because she was terribly afraid of being poor, she grew up in a poor environment. She managed to get into a good university but had very little living expenses. She could only earn it by herself. I learned all these from her complaints to our parents in my previous life. I'm not sure if she really loves George, but she must be very afraid that George will leave her. She must have mistakenly thought that there was something between me and George. So she was so anxious and deliberately showed her weak point to test Mrs. Duncan and me. I ordered an iced coffee and waited for her at a seat near the door. Mia pushed the door open and saw me too. I waved at her. She frowned but still sat down opposite me. It was obvious that she was a bit flustered. Do you know me? You know me too. Mia, this was the first time I saw Mia in this life. In my previous life, I actually hated her to death. What do you want from me? I'm telling you, Brother George only likes me. He's just pretending with you. The corner of my mouth curled up in a sarcastic smile. Who likes George? I only like money. Then do you know that you almost ruined his future? Do you know that? I took a sip of coffee and looked at her sharply. It was clear that Mia was getting nervous. This is the agreement I signed with George. We are indeed just pretending, but he has his reasons for doing this. The image that we finally established in front of his mother was ruined by you. Do you know that? Mia's hands trembled as she took the agreement. After looking at it a few times, her eyes unconsciously turned red. She said with a choked voice, I was just afraid that he didn't love me anymore. I didn't know he was like this, with this pitiful look. It's no wonder George was fascinated by her. I sighed and said, there's a way to fix it, but I need your cooperation. I told her my idea, and Mia listened as usual, seeing how obedient she was. For a moment, I didn't know whether she didn't want George to be sad or was afraid of losing the rich second-generation guy she had finally gotten. Of course, I didn't tell George about the plan between me and Mia. Mia took the initiative to break up with George. And no matter how much George tried to persuade her to stay, it was in vain. George got really drunk outside, and Mia took him to his house. I took the opportunity to enter George's house and saw George hugging Mia tightly and refusing to let go. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Fine, you two can just keep hugging like that. I'll go sleep on the sofa outside. George was acting so childish now, constantly acting coquettishly. They say that a man is like a child in front of the person he likes. This George really likes Mia, doesn't he? But Mia firmly shook her head and said, no, I'll leave as soon as I put him to sleep. If you're not, you can keep having a video call with him. I trust you, Sarah. Trust me. I was really surprised by that. In my previous life, Mia could be said to have done everything to sow discord between me and my parents. I didn't even know how many knives were stabbed in my back after I was kicked out of the house. Mia put George to sleep and then left. That was naturally the best outcome. The place where George drank was a store of the Duncan family, so Mrs. Duncan was bound to know about it, and since Mia took George away, Mrs. Duncan would definitely come to George's house either early in the morning or late at night. Mrs. Duncan would definitely not allow Mia and George to have any more connections. I was woken up by Mia's phone call. Wake up quickly, Mrs. Duncan is at the door. I quickly ran to George's bed and pretended to be sleeping in his arms, of course. There were some messy clothes on the floor. These were all the false appearances that Mia deliberately created the day before. I heard the sound of the door opening, and then the footsteps of several people. They pushed open the bedroom door, and the anxious steps of Mrs. Duncan made my heart tremble, but the footsteps stopped beside the bed. I guessed that Mrs. Duncan must have seen my face. Then I heard a click. This cost is a bit high. I felt like crying inside but had no tears. Immediately after, I heard the footsteps of them leaving and the sound of the door closing. I could finally heave a sigh of relief, but I was still a bit worried and didn't dare to move at all, until the phone rang. I quickly got out of this awkward position. Mrs. Duncan left, and she even sent me a photo. We had bribed the security guard in advance, so Mia was sure that Mrs. Duncan had left and then called me. I simply replied to her, just pretend to be incredulous and heartbroken, but Mia said, okay. Let's have breakfast together. I was just hungry, and most importantly, I didn't want to stay in George's house any longer. It was still early and a bit cold. Mia seemed to know that I was wearing thin clothes and even brought me a coat. I have to say, she was really considerate. No wonder she was so likable. We found a breakfast restaurant and sat down. Sister Sarah, don't worry. I will definitely explain it clearly to George and make him understand Sister Sarah's good intentions. The address of Sister Sarah almost made me choke. Since when was I so familiar with Mia? I had no idea. Just do as you think is right. Remember to make him give me the money. As long as the money is in place, it's easy to talk about. If it really doesn't work, I'll sell the apartment and live in a remote small town. Sister Sarah, your family is so rich. Why do you still want to make money so much? Mia asked. I looked into Mia's eyes. It was obvious that she was really curious. You'll know later. You'll know later that you are the real daughter, and Mrs. Duncan will also do a 180-degree turn in her attitude towards you. I have to say, Mia is really the female protagonist of a quick-paced novel. George quickly transferred another $500,000 to me. Mrs. Duncan was also firmly convinced that George and I were really together and would invite me to be a guest from time to time. I didn't decline much either. After all, if you're going to pretend, you have to go all the way. And George officially became the heir of the Duncan family. He was secretly in love with Mia. During this period, my little home was also all set up. I became a shareholder of Chandler's company, which was a great guarantee for me. One day, I received a call from my parents. My dear daughter, your birthday is coming up. What do you want? Hearing these familiar words, my heart ached a bit. In my previous life, the words, I don't want you anymore, also came from my father who used to dote on me. What I want most is for my parents to keep loving me, but I had this thought in my previous life, and the ending was really tragic. I couldn't beat Mia. My dear daughter, why aren't you talking? I blinked my red eyes and pretended to reply in a calm tone. I want Dad to transfer money to me. It should be a voluntary gift. You little money grubber. Ding, $200,000 was credited to my Alipay account. Suddenly, I felt like I was alive again. My birthday was approaching, and I was about to leave soon. My birthday finally arrived. This birthday party was even more grand than the one in my previous life, because at the end of this birthday party, the marriage alliance between the Lincoln family and the Duncan family would also be announced. I didn't object to my parents' decision at all because I knew that after this birthday party, I would leave the Lincoln family. My identity as the fake daughter would also be exposed. I stood under the stage, and Linda tried to put her arm around me on her own initiative. Seeing her somewhat flattering look, I quickly moved aside. If she hadn't offered to come herself, I wouldn't have let her attend the birthday party. My so-called mother went on stage and started to speak. I always felt that she gave me a meaningful look. If nothing unexpected happened, Mia would soon appear from the backstage, and she would be holding the paternity test. My mother stood in the center of the stage and said, "Thank you all for coming to my daughter Mia's birthday party." Mia, I was stunned, and everyone present was also stunned. Yes, my daughter's name is Mia. We have already done a paternity test. As for Sarah, she is not my biological daughter. After saying this, all eyes in the hall turned to me. I looked at the so-called mother on the stage. She didn't look at me and continued to speak. The reason why I'm saying this here is to introduce my daughter to everyone and to announce the marriage between my daughter Mia and George. I looked at George and Mrs. Duncan. It seemed that they had already known about it, so these days, I was the only one kept in the dark. I didn't understand why this life was different from my previous life. Was it because my actions were different from those in my previous life? My eyes unconsciously turned a bit red. I didn't expect that I had been used as a stepping stone. I originally thought that when Mia appeared, I could leave gracefully. Now it seemed that I was the clown. The birthday party that my parents had put so much effort into was actually to introduce their own daughter. I looked at Mia, who was brought under the spotlight, and turned to leave. Fortunately, I had a place to live. Fortunately, I had money. I left the hotel, walking on the street in my dress. I was shivering from the cold. My phone vibrated. I took a look and saw a message from my so-called father. "I'm sorry, but I don't want my biological daughter to be wronged even more." Sorry. This meant that he was telling me that all of this was deliberately done, so they had known that I wasn't their biological daughter. And I had cherished this family affection so much these days. It was so ironic. I didn't know how long I had walked. I wanted to find a place to sit down, but my skirt was too short. I could only stand there and look at the busy traffic. I never thought that I would leave in such a sorry state. Suddenly, I looked down and saw a shadow behind me. I turned around tremblingly and saw a man's chest. Looking up, it was Chandler. He took off his coat and put it on me. His eyes were filled with pity. "What's wrong with my little princess in distress?" I lowered my head and didn't want him to see my red eyes. Chandler still asked me, even though he was clearly at the scene too, "Don't be sad, you still have me." "I'm not sad at all. I'm a major shareholder." "So, does the major shareholder have any interest in joining my company?" I looked up at Chandler in disbelief. Was this an unexpected surprise for me? My previous company fired me as soon as they learned that I was a fake daughter. I officially became a member of Chandler's company. I majored in journalism in undergraduate school, so at least I wasn't wasting what I had learned. I cut off contact with my previous company and the people I knew. I tentatively sent a message to Linda, and sure enough, I was blocked. I had experienced contempt and slander in my previous life, but in this life, I had a house, money, and a job that could reflect my value. All of these made me very satisfied. The relationship between me and Chandler also underwent a qualitative change. Yes, we were together, we had both seen each other's lowest points, but we had also seen each other's value more clearly. This year, the e-commerce industry developed rapidly. Chandler's internet company was also growing bigger and bigger. His talent was finally noticed by his father, Leo, but Chandler didn't care, because as he said, he just wanted to run his own company well and be my boyfriend. One day, I was chatting with Chandler. "I knew you would definitely succeed. That's because I have a smart girlfriend. You would still succeed without me, without Sarah. It can't be considered success." I looked into Chandler's eyes. Well, I was really charmed. My little nest is quite close to the company, so I usually live there. However, Chandler is always so cheeky that he wants to squeeze in with me. He always has all kinds of excuses. "Sarah, I'm afraid of the dark." Is that something a tough guy should say? "Sarah, it's raining outside, so what? Does your underground garage leak?" Yeah, I had no choice but to indulge him. However, on this day, when I got home, I saw an unexpected person at the door. It was the real daughter of the Lincoln family. She looked at me and Chandler with a complicated expression in her eyes. "Sarah, can we have a talk?" "What do I have to talk about with you? Don't you want to know about your relatives?" "No, I really don't want to have anything to do with Mia." I successfully verified my fingerprint and was just about to enter the house when Mia suddenly grabbed me. "What are you doing?" "Sarah, please have a talk with me." "Come in then." I wanted to see what this Mia was up to. As a result, she directly said, "Sister, Mia came this time to confess to me. In the last life, the Lincoln family found the culprit. However, that person turned out to be Mia's adoptive mother, Lily. Mia hated her to the core and even sent her to court. That woman was my father's first love." Mandy himself didn't expect that his first love was such a heartless person. Mia thought that her adoptive mother would finally go to hell, but Lily said that Mandy's retribution had already come, because I passed away. Back then, Mandy's wife gave birth to twins, but one of the baby girls hardly had any signs of life. The hospital was afraid of taking responsibility, so they said there was only one child. After that, Lily took the child away. If you want to blame someone, blame the fact that Mandy didn't like his wife at that time and didn't care about it at all. That's what gave Lily such an opportunity. Lily raised the child and hoped that she would be mediocre and unpromising, but Mia was very promising. So, Lily came up with another way to make the two sisters fight against each other. In the end, Mia cut off my means of survival. "Sister, in the last life. I felt very guilty. I didn't expect to have a chance to start over, but I came a bit late. Which made you feel wronged at the birthday party. For a moment, I didn't know whether I should believe what Mia said. Mia took a few of my hairs. A few days later, the report came out, and the similarity was 99%. This dramatic life really makes me speechless. Sister, you believe me now, right? Let's go back to find mom and dad together. But I shook my head. I think I'm doing quite well now and don't want to have anything to do with the Lincoln family anymore. Mia respected my decision, however. Mia would buy me things from time to time. I really felt embarrassed about that. Suddenly, I thought of something and asked, "Did you break up with George?" Mia nodded. I was a bit curious. "Why did you break up? Didn't you both like each other very much?" Mia said. "He thought I had changed. I had a chance to start over, and I became quite different from before. Then are you sad?" "After all, you liked him so much." Mia nodded but said, "I'm sad, but I know that I want to apologize to you more. Compared with love, I want to make up for what I did back then more." At that moment, I suddenly forgave Mia. Extra story about Mia. I really disliked my mother. She would scold and beat me for no reason and was never nice to me. She always forced me to do housework and didn't want me to study. I did well in the high school entrance examination, but for the sake of $2,000. She made me go to a school in the countryside. When I took the college entrance examination, I finally got into a university in a city far away from home. At that moment, I finally thought that my hard days were over. It's true that studying can change one's destiny. Although I was very busy in college, my family didn't give me the tuition fees, so I had to make money like crazy to support myself. In my junior year of college, I met the most important man in my life. He was humorous and generous. I fell in love with him very quickly. We were deeply in love, but his family didn't agree. His mother liked a girl named Sarah, a very proud girl. She looked like someone who was born and raised in a pampered environment, completely different from me. At that time, I even wished I could replace her. Unexpectedly, this absurd idea actually came true. I was the real daughter of the Lincoln family. I started to become conceited, going on crazy shopping sprees to make up for my poor childhood. Even though Sarah was a fake daughter, she still seemed more elegant than me. I was so jealous. Clearly, I was the real daughter, so I did all kinds of bad things, making my parents misunderstand Sarah many times. Sarah was finally kicked out of the house. Now, I was the only eldest lady of the Lincoln family. I accidentally heard the servants say that I was stingy, which made me even angrier. Why was I still looked down upon even though Sarah had left the family? So I used all kinds of means to block Sarah's way of finding a job. I just wanted to see her begging me for mercy when she was completely helpless. But she was gone. She struggled at the bottom of society and finally passed away. When I first heard the news, I felt a bit guilty, but soon my attention was diverted by some good news, because the culprit of that year was found. When I saw that it was my adoptive mother, Lily, I was even happier. She had never shown me any love, and I wanted to make her later life miserable. On the day of the court trial, I said, "You will surely get what you deserve for what you have done." But she burst into laughter. Everyone thought she had gone crazy. She laughed and said, "Me getting retribution? But your retribution has already come. Do you know that, in fact, you were twins back then? However, I heard that Sarah was dead. Your sister is dead, and you killed her. Hate me? How much better are you?" It turned out that I was the one who killed my sister. I fainted on the spot. I just couldn't forgive myself. Fortunately, God gave me a chance to start over. Unfortunately, I came too late. My sister had already left the family, and she must have been extremely sad at that time. I had to go to her place to explain. Only after getting her forgiveness did I feel a bit better. However, my sister is now happily married to my brother-in-law. I'm really envious. I wonder when my Prince Charming will come. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.